Amid growing concerns about rising energy prices, energy independence, and the impact of climate change, the construction and building sector has emerged as a primary energy consumer in India. The building sector can significantly reduce the use of energy by designing net zero buildings. A net zero energy building produces as much as energy as it uses over a course of a year. And this has been validated by many research. Currently, there are only a small number of highly efficient buildings that meets the criteria to be called net zero, and there is a need for more such buildings. Keeping this in mind, today we have organized an interactive session online on net zero buildings challenges and resolutions. Now, I would like to invite my colleague, Associate Editor of ACE Update, Mr. Vikas Badra, to introduce the panelists and moderate this session.
The distinguished speakers for today's interaction on net zero buildings, challenges and resolutions are Anusha Bajpai, architect from Studio Lotus; Shabnam Basi, fellow and associate director of the Energy and Resources Institute; Mr. Gurmeet Singh Arora, national chairman CII Indian Green Building Council; and Ms. Mala Singh, founder and MD PEC Greening India. The first question which I had actually was aimed at Anusha. Given the kind of global, the diverse experience you have working with different, in different nations, in response to the West, how does India fare when it comes to penetration of net zero buildings? How easy or difficult is it?
In India, we have such a rich culture and background and foundation in climate responsive design. From South India to North, from East to West, if you look at the local housing, if you look at the local abodes, it is really at one with nature. And the problem really started happening when we started imitating the West without realizing that all we needed to do was just look at what was existing and how it can be optimized to suit our particular lifestyles, our particular needs as of, the growing and evolving needs with each passing generation. But the wealth is all there, and the local materials, the labor, the ample sunlight for solar generation, all of these basic foundations are in place. Unfortunately, the difference is the awareness. That's why I had spoken about the client angle, because for a client, net zero, Griha, LEED, these are names, these are labels. So it is our responsibility as architects and designers to really bring that awareness to them, that this might be a label, but let me tell you how it translates into your daily usage of the building, into the energy optimization, performance, water dependency. That's where you see the difference. So our esteemed panelists talked about what approaches are being taken from a larger governmental regulatory level in terms of bringing that awareness. And us as designers, we are trying to do it from our level up. While we are not helping make the rules, we are educating the general people in terms of this is how it can really impact your life. It might be a standalone residence, it might be a production facility, but these are ways it can impact your life. So we have a lot to go on, and next step is really awareness and more regulation so that we can come up to the level of, again, certain spaces in the West. I wouldn't say we can just look at the West for something like this. There are some countries, there are some places where they have made it their primary agenda. And in some where it's shocking how, such a contemporary and rich society can still be functioning or, using heavily fossil fuels, no waste management, etc. So we have a lot of that in place. I don't think that the leap for us is really that the gap is that wide.
The next question which I have for Ms. Basi, Shabnamji, satellite townships, like existing cities, they are filling up, and we have more and more satellite townships coming up. Like in Bombay, we have New Bombay. Similarly, in same things in other states as well. So when satellite townships come up, what can these townships, these new cities do better in ensuring that the built environment is net zero from the start? They can plan it properly. Unlike existing cities, which were they just develop.
It's a very good question that the new townships that are coming up, how should they look at these aspects of green, sustainable, and how do they, plan their cities so that they don't make the same mistakes? I think one of the most important aspect that any satellite township should look at is, the lessons that one has to learn from the past and envision, a better future. All these townships, should aim at not being fast-paced infrastructure and should rather concentrate on a holistic, sustainable, and resilient approach. All the factors like water, waste management, renewable energy generation, and use of embodied energy carbon of construction materials and processes, must be accounted for, with energy efficient building design in tandem. So, we should look at creating new policies which should factor in all these aspects and must be implemented by the organization. And of course, one important aspect is that while we create policies, they should be done in such a way that they're not mere as policies but are implementable and are more practical. And it should be backed by data and a lot of case studies so that it is easy to adopt and people can really see the impact on ground. I think these are my few words on how should we design the towns.
Okay, and I think, I guess some of these pointers have been, implemented in the cities which are coming up, I'm pretty sure. And I think moving on, this another query which comes to mind, when you talk about new cities, like Malaji, for existing cities, like we spoke about townships now, for existing cities which are like 20 years old, what steps can be taken to make them net zero?
Yeah, Vikasji, I know this question is coming to me. I think if you are talking in respect to existing cities, so definitely we are talking about existing buildings also and existing built environment, which is basically a complete strategy we need to think upon. So I think in existing cities, first we need to think this issue at micro and macro both levels. We need to work on the micro level also, because we need to understand first our consumption pattern. Our basically resource efficiency is very, very important here. So in terms of energy consumption, in terms of your water consumption, so these resource measurement and resource data, having this data in place as a baseline is very, very important first, so that we can have a strategy to optimize it by retrofitting, because here you cannot do the design intervention at that level which you can do in the new projects. In existing, it's all about the understanding of your baseline benchmarks, what you are consuming today in terms of resources, which is very, very important to understand. If it comes to the micro level, like at a building level, the story starts from the auditing always. You start with the green audits, you start with the energy audit, water audit, waste audit, which is not happening in India, which I feel that it should be like this. And every company should have, some sort of benchmark and goals that they should be given some benchmark by the government itself. Like in Singapore, we have, if your building is not performing, not able to achieve 25% from the baseline parameter, they cancel your license. But in India, nobody just bother here how much energy you are consuming in commercial building or residential building. Nobody bothers. Nobody bothers, once the building are in operation, everybody is just in my house. I'm just taking care of my electricity bill only. I'm living in a housing society, so I'm just taking care of my maintenance bill, I think this is very, very, I would say, indeed subject where government intervention and policy mechanism and definitely this green building approach and under O&M, standard system could help here. And we have various case studies, and if you have a time, I think I can say proudly that we have already achieved in some of our existing buildings, which were 48 years old or 50 years old building, we have done this exercise. And we have worked for 3 years or 4 years. And we have also worked on the ROI and the CapEx and all the analysis. And we have able to, I would say, achieve our goal of 50% reduction in energy consumption and carbon emission. And they are the very big brands. And I think in my last presentation, I have already given that, like State Bank of India and, a lot of commercial buildings are coming like this. And one thing which I would like to address here, which I think my other panelists, they will be also very happy, in some of the buildings where we were working on the retrofitting and, we were working to reduce their EPI, there, the entire consumption is being taken care by now in the high-rise building, in the urban context. Now it is being taken care by the either off-site green policy, and some part is being taken care by the local green tariff policy also, which is a good thing now. Because now local electricity, electricity authority are also giving you opportunity to purchase the green tariff, green electricity which is generated from the renewable sources. You need to pay, I think, 60 paisa extra per unit. So some commercial projects, they are using this strategy here. But definitely in residential, it is through awareness, capacity building program. So in a different strategy for different
Right.
you are dealing with.
Yeah.
It works like that.
It's good to know that there are certain things
definitely.
happening.
Yeah.
And ladies and gentlemen, we would have loved to carry on this dynamic interaction. However, we are running short of time. So I would now like Mr. Gurmeet Singh Arora to give a closing statement.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are all aware that without legislation, it is very difficult in this country to really imbibe anything. For example, you go to New Delhi, only 55% of the sewage treatment plant capacity is there, and out of that, 30% is not functional. Now, unless we do not bring in legislation and work with government, it is going to be very difficult to come about in ensuring net zero cities. You asked how can we incorporate and bring about net zero cities, but because without legislation, how will you do it?
Right.
Today, even the building community thinks that green buildings cost a lot more. And a lot of them advertise that they're green without a certification. Certification cost is not much, but you ensure that you build healthy living spaces. You build spaces where your productivity goes up and where there is a payback of 1 or 2 years. So it really makes business sense, as I said earlier, to go green. And we must all work together towards making sure that we protect the Earth's resources. Trust me, we are in a very grave situation. We have to go down 1,200 meters to touch the water table in Bengaluru, 800 meters to touch the water table in Chennai, 400 to 800. Now, if I look at an average of 600 meters, I'm looking at 1,800, 1,900 feet to actually touch the water. And then there are people who tell me, one of my chairman, 3 years old, I will not see anything more worse than this, so we don't need to do this. Ladies and gentlemen, how many of you have made your will? Anybody has made, all of you all are very young, anybody has made your will? Shabnam, have you made your will? No. Anyway.
Too soon, sir.
When you make, no, okay. When you make your will, ladies and gentlemen, and you put in your gold, your jewelry, your wealth, your property, please add son and daughter, due to my mistakes, I am leaving behind 1 tsunami, 1 forest fire, 1 typhoon, 1 cyclone, and some heat island. So if we don't do something together, this is exactly what you're going to put in your will. And you're going to say, I'm sorry, son and daughter, I'm leaving you a earth which is going to destroy it. There's no second earth, and this earth as our mother. And you cannot keep on extracting from the womb of your mother again and again and again and again. Even a child, the mother nurses the child with her own milk only for some time. After that, the child grows up.
Correct.
You cannot keep on extracting again and again. So all of us must work towards sustainability, try and create communities, because the government cannot do it alone. Government has got the Amrut mission. Okay?
That's right. There's a collective responsibility. People that needs to be taken care of. People have to understand that it's a collective responsibility. That's right.
What did John F. Kennedy say? What can you do for your country? Not what your country can do. So what can you do for Bharat? What can you do for Bharat Ma? That is more important, and I leave you with that.
Thank you very much for joining with us for today's session. Our apologies for extending the timeline by 5 minutes to conclude the session. And I hope you enjoyed the interaction. So, ladies and gentlemen, with that, I announce the closing of today's interaction. And I look forward to see you next month in another discussion. Thank you all. Thanks a lot.